Okay, we're going to introduce our panelists right now for you. We want Nicole, Sue. It's okay to clap. Matthew, Izzy, Tracy, and Mason. And at this time, we want to all welcome Aaron. Woo-hoo! What'd you say? Yeah. I'm sitting with you. I'm gonna sit here with you. He will be here. He's on his way. Awesome. All right. Woo. Okay. How's everybody doing today? I'm good. The sun has been out, so I'm got a little bit of allergies because all the stuff, but that's okay. Happy the sun is out. So welcome to our guest. We do have one more that is coming. He had a meeting that ran over. I'm gonna take this off. Had a meeting that ran over, so he is on his way. One of our representatives. So I'm happy to have him here as well to discuss tonight. So opening remarks. Tonight we're diving into a conversation that's as complex as it is crucial. Homelessness, government aid, and the role we all play in caring for those among us who are struggling. These are issues that carry weight, evoke emotion, and often spark discomfort. But that's exactly why we're here. Because the only way to move forward is to listen deeply, speak honestly, and challenge our assumptions. Whether you've experienced housing insecurity firsthand, or you're trying to understand it better, tonight is about leaning into the discomfort with grace, empathy, and a willingness to hear multiple truths. Let's get into the conversation. You guys ready?
As much as
All
we
right.
can.
What'd you say?
As much as we can.
And just make sure you speak into the mic so everybody can hear you. We can pick it up for recording as well. So we're going to jump right into homelessness. And tonight was really important to me. And coincidentally, Bay City is experiencing this conversation right now, right? It's very heightened at this very moment. So I think this is really, we planned this at the beginning of the year, right? So it's really interesting that it's kind of prevalent right now, but that's what makes it so good is that it's in real time. And so I want to ask you all, what do you believe are the root causes of homelessness? Are they more individual or systemic? Like, what do you think are some of the root causes? And I know people have different assumptions and kind of there's some myth behind it, but what do you all think?
Mental health.
Okay. I'm going to move this up just a little bit for you.
Yeah.
Don't be shy.
No, not at all.
Okay.
No. Mental health is one of the biggest root causes of homelessness. It debilitates people to functioning, makes it hard for them to live day to day when they're living life 24/7, 365. It wears on them. It also, at the same time, makes them really resilient, y'all. They fight a battle every day with the demon that they wake up to and they don't know how to fight. And then the resources that they need aren't available readily. They're here, but the red tape and things that they have to go through to get them is very difficult. And time is of the essence. We're dealing with these folks in a crisis.
Awesome. Thank you. So mental health is one. Thank you. What else?
I would say substance use disorder. A lot of times, you have families or friends that have supported them for a very long time, and they just, addiction is hard. And so they get to the point where maybe it's normalized, they're getting steady with housing or something like that, and it's just too normal for them. And so they'll root back to their addiction, and just having the resource too for them is very hard to find. And so I think biggest thing is addiction too.
Awesome, thank you. Anybody else want to add to that?
I would. A lack of affordable housing was a big thing for me personally. and not having enough, there being too much of a gap between the cost of living and what you earn in your employment, not being able to meet the rising costs of housing and utilities.
Okay, thank you. Izzy?
Yeah, I agree with everything that was said above. I think that one of the biggest issues that I've seen is definitely systematic when it comes to policies that have been created over decades. I think a lot of that even stems back to the New Deal era. We've seen lobbying with the sorry, I'm trying to think of the Chamber of Commerce, as well as the National Realtor Association, has been lobbying since the New Deal era, really just to make sure that folks don't have the stability in housing that we really do need.
Awesome, thank you. Did you want to add to that, Mason? Go ahead.
Yeah, I do think that one of the big kind of factors that right now is becoming exacerbated is the general economic state of everything right now. I think as costs increase, it gets harder for people to get by. And if you're just struggling to get by, you're not able to advocate for yourself. So unless somebody is directly placing something into your hands, then it's difficult to connect people to resources. And in bigger cities where there's more economic inequality, and in Bay City, relatively speaking, the cost of living is fairly cheap. The problem is everything's going up everywhere. So we're starting to see this problem worsen, not just in big cities where there's huge economic inequality, but in places like this where, big cities have a lot stronger tax base that they can kind of use to combat some of these issues. But Bay City's not always been in that position. And part of that is regressive policies that we've seen implemented over time. And like Izzy said, there's kind of been this shift away from investing in social safety nets and more so into business and development, which can be done sustainably. But in the current state, we're not in a position where you can just slash those social safety nets with how the economy is right now and people just struggling to get by.
Yeah. Thank you. Welcome, Matthew. So I'm going to ask a question. Now, let me preface this for people that don't understand my job here. I'm going to ask questions that some people may not like, okay? Because I want to represent all voices, and if I can't get them at the table, I'm going to ask the questions, okay? So, just wanted to preface it with that. Do you think it's fair for people to live in public spaces if others are paying high rent or mortgages to live in that same space? Okay, so what that means is, some people it's difficult for people to accept the fact that people are able to live for free, right? And some people are, I know. People, and so with that said, there is some pushback, right? If you live in a community, say for instance, you have a business, right? You pay taxes, you pay different things, you have this business. And I know for me, I come from a big city, I've been to big cities. What we see here is nothing compared to some bigger cities, right? And so you may have people that are outside in front of your business. Sometimes people are trying to get into that business and it's hard because they're being, of course, asked for, different things. So do you think that it's fair that people are allowed to live for free, so to speak? And then what responsibility does the community have to help them? Or do they have a responsibility?
You want me to start?
Anybody can, go for it, yeah.
I think they do. I think we as a community have a responsibility to make sure that, people who have circumstances that aren't ideal have support when it's needed. I think kind of looking at it holistically, and I remember I believe it was at a city meeting. It might have been in an interview, but the public safety director here in Bay City said, we're not going to criminalize homelessness. Mm-hmm. I think that, if you look at the quality of living for a lot of those folks, it's not good. They're living for free, but they're barely getting by. Mm-hmm. And we have people who, are paying for things, but they're paying for quality of life too. And, you might be able to afford a house or an apartment, but that puts you in a whole different position than somebody who's literally sleeping on the street trying not to freeze to death. Yeah. So I do think that, at least, when I pay taxes, which I've started to do actually. I think there were a few people on Facebook that I know that there's some people probably wondering. But no, I think that that's something that's important to me. Some people might say, hey, we need to invest in business. Hey, we need to do that. But I think investing in our people and making sure that people don't slip through the cracks, that's something that's important to me as a taxpayer.
Okay, so you're saying yes, the community does have responsibility, and we can dive a little bit into like what that looks like, right? Because to me, sometimes it's really easy for us to kind of say things kind of abstract, but what does that look like, right? I mean, because I think about, and I want somebody else to answer this question as well, but I think about whenever we talk about homelessness in communities, right? People always say there's these abandoned buildings, there's these abandoned places. Why don't we just put people in there? And then my question always is, okay, who pays for that? What does that look like? Who renovates it? Who does all the things? And I think it's easy for us to say, hey, we need to just do this, but how does that happen? And who's responsible for it? So does anybody want to add to that? Matthew?
Yeah, so I mean, this isn't a new problem, right?
Sure.
It's existed for a long time. I think how we approach it has changed dramatically over the last 50 years. A lot of these things that the state or the city or government or whoever is doing now used to be done by the church, or they were done by multi-generational families. And as those things have changed, we've looked for new safety nets, and a lot of that has fallen on the state. I agree. I don't think homelessness should be a crime by any means. And I think we need to look for opportunities to help people.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just, we should all be helping people.
Yeah. Thank you. Anybody else want to add to that?
I would like to add something.
Please.
A little pushback at the idea that being homeless or living outside is living for free.
Sure.
My experience was not that at all. It's actually more expensive to survive without shelter and access to food on a regular basis, and what kind of food that you can get. And if you're living out of your car, fuel to stay warm, mechanical repairs if the car that you're living in breaks down, and tickets if you get towed, if you lose that only shelter that you have and end up out on the street. It's just very expensive, and it's not free. And I think it would be, I honestly feel that, it's a human right for housing. I think that I'm a big supporter of Maslow's pyramid of hierarchy, and that the best, and like Mason said, the best investment that we have is in our people, because they're potential workers and they're potential, assets to the community. And so I believe that when you meet those basic needs and they can achieve self-actualization, like on the pyramid, that a community benefits greatly. And I believe that, a community is essential, and that means everybody.
Yeah. So how do we do it? Right? How do we do that? Again, I agree. I think that, people should be cared for. But what does that look like from a community perspective? And like you mentioned, Matthew, the church used to be a big part of that, right? Where people could come in and even stay in the church, stay overnight and have shelter. So how long, I guess my next question is, because I don't think that we can come up with an answer right now about how we do it. But my next question is, how long should that last, right? Is there a limit to this? Or is just a ongoing thing? Thank you.
I'll combine the two.
Yeah, please.
There is a solution, I think,
Okay.
if we were to take the resources that we have, which are plenty, yes, and breed them in, because we have so many organizations doing the same thing, reaching multiple, sometimes frequent flyer people, that if we could get our resources in one area and we could actually see who we were servicing and how to suit their needs and find an immediate way to do that instead of the red tape that these folks go through in order to even get some help, then maybe we could make it simpler to create the stability that Nicole speaks of, because without the stability, we can't address the mental health, we can't address their living circumstances, their health needs.
Yeah.
None of that until they have the stability. And without affordable housing, without a safe place to live, whether it's in their car, or let's take, for instance, if you see what Traverse City is doing, they are trying to find a solution to move these people out of their encampment without just uprooting them and cutting them out on the street with no place to go and no resources in their hand. They're making it a transition process. Whereas we've seen what happened in Saginaw a couple weeks ago. They just came through, took these people and uprooted them, and no warning, with no place to go, and there wasn't even a social worker on site. Same thing we did here. They were given notice, but there was no resources given to these people in order to get them where they needed to be. It takes the one-on-one interaction of those of us in the community, or those of us that are on that moral compass, that find it in our hearts every day to get up and help people just because, that it makes the difference. These people, our neighbors, are unsheltered, don't like a clipboard and a badge all the time. It's intimidating. So for me, for instance, a person just coming in and saying, hey, how can I help? Don't judge, no questions asked, and provide them with the immediate need. And simple as, let me just put out this, a bag of hope and dignity, a bag with some clean underwear, some water, Band-Aids, a trash bag to clean up after themselves, because in the reality, they don't choose this and they don't want to live this way. It's a lack of resources for them to maintain their environment in which they're trying to survive. So in order for us to make a significant change for these people, we need to have an immediate reaction for the now. And it goes the same for those that are in active substance use. On the day that they say, today is my day to go to rehab, we don't have 2 days to wait. We need a now. Because at the intervention is the way that we get to a solution.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
Can I add to that?
Yeah, please.
So
Please.
there used to be a program, and I don't know if some counties still do this, but it's called Housing First Model. And so what this model is, basically when somebody is homeless or substance disorder, mental health, we get them into a safe housing. And then you have a case management throughout the whole process to get them connected to the appropriate resource. Again, you talk about Maslow hierarchy. When you don't have a safe place to go, I mean, how can you work on your mental health? How can you work on your disorder? So I don't know whatever happened to that Housing First model, but I feel like we need to bring that back in and see if this would, not solve, but could help the homelessness in that situation.
Yeah, yeah. I'm going to ask again, because I really appreciate you all's input. Where do the resources come from? And I understand people like you, Tracy, who take it upon your heart to do it, right? You have people that are, kind of individuals that are doing this and going into the encampments and kind of helping out. How do we do it as a collective? Where does the money come from? You get what I'm saying? Like how, and then sustainability, right? Doing it once a month or whatever it is. How do you do it in a sustainable way that actually makes change in the long run, not just that immediate, but like actually,
Right.
kind of ongoing.
So
And then let Izzy go, and then I'll let you go. Yeah, go Izzy. Go
I think that some of that is based in policy that we're creating on a
Okay.
local, state, and even federal level sometimes. But I think that resources like Tracy is and what she's doing on a mutual aid level is really, really important. And it's a part of this larger collective action that we're doing. I think that bringing in organizations that are doing that and creating a coalition of efforts amongst those organizations is also one of the first steps that we can take. So many organizations are working in silos. They're not speaking together. Some are even, worried about maybe going on others' turf and stepping on, lines that they don't want to, or feel like they may cross a line. I think that also it's really important to look at policy like rent control, making sure that we're creating possibly an anti-eviction task force in our city, and dedicating resources towards reports and seeing what we can really do to make sure that we're building sustainable and resilient action at the start and being proactive with it, instead of having to really get to the point where we're in that crisis with unhoused individuals. So you can go, Tracy.
Yeah.
and
And it makes sense. Did you have something to say after that?
Yeah. I think
Okay.
it's a policy thing. I think government
Okay.
is supposed to work for people. I think there's a lot of distrust in government right now, and I think that there's a real thing there, and people kind of look at it as, hey, it's taking all this time for people to get help. Maybe government isn't as efficient, but I think looking at it from like a holistic standpoint is government isn't there to police, because consenting adults that are getting married, or what your healthcare decisions are. But I think government is there to support people, and we need to go back to that. I think right now people that distrust has come from a feeling that government comes in and they tell you what to do, and they don't offer any support. And I think from like a policy standpoint, those are decisions that need to be made now. We're seeing these problems come up, and we're giving knee-jerk reactions to issues that are holistic and systemic and need to be addressed in that manner. So when you talk about housing or all of these things, I think people, and in Bay City, we're fairly lucky. We have a robust housing commission that doesn't exist in other places. Affordable housing is something that I think people in local government see as a priority right now. But I think that there's kind of this immediate distrust that people have in government and what government's able to do. So I think getting back to that, and rather than just cutting and slashing funding, I think looking at it from a standpoint of this is an investment and we need to do this well, rather than stripping resources away because, oh, well, maybe there's some inefficiencies. I don't think that works, because there's a lot of people that rely on those things, and there's a lot of people who are barely getting by right now. So imagine if those things get taken away. There's a lot of people that'll be left in the dark.
Yeah. And so when they get taken away, what happens is your grassroots come in and your community unites. And that's basically what we've done. Our community makes our mission move for immediate help. And it's not just Tracy, it's everybody in my community that's been all hands in. So what we've done is everybody wants to help, right? In some way. Sometimes we don't know how. And if we give people just a little way to help, even if it's like, hey, I need a case of water for today because I'm going out to deliver snacks, that right there gives everybody an open opportunity to do something, even if it's this small. And it makes the difference in that person every single day, just a bottle of water. So sustainability is, reuniting our community and getting back to the traditional ways that we once did when we cared about our neighbor and we watched out for them, their things and their person, their children. We're just, it's the societal change. Here we are, and, finding a viable solution is still loving your neighbor and doing what you can, if you can, how you can, and when you can. So.
Thank you.
I'd also like to add something to that.
Sure, please.
To back up what Tracy's saying. When I did see a successful model of people that were living in the woods to going into transitional housing and then getting stable and having permanent housing, even becoming homeowners. That was down in Ingham County and Eaton County. Eaton was a very close-knit community, and all churches, despite the different churches, were all hands on deck, and that was great. But they were also people that lived by the Bible and followed it, in a literal sense. There were also pillars in the community, and government, the superintendent's wife who ran the Eaton County Siren Shelter. They all played a pivotal role in gathering funding from the community, setting up programs where they all collaborated. So like if people couldn't wash their clothes, and if they can't wash their clothes, they can't go on an interview. If people don't have a physical address where they can receive mail or apply for a job, all those needs were met by people that came together and either formed nonprofits or were already established and were working with. So like, organization in the community is essential. Collaboration is essential. And on a local level in Ingham and in Eaton, it was successful. You knew that if you couldn't get help in Ingham, you could go to Eaton, and you would go through. It wasn't just like you're getting 30 to 60 days in a shelter and then you're timing out and being put on the street, because that happened here to one of my friends who had 2 children. And she ended up having to go all the way to the UP to find any kind of help to get her into affordable housing, into an income-based apartment. And that's, she's far away from me. I miss her.
Yeah.
And I don't think that that's right. I think we have enough resources down here to address this issue. I think we have things that we can utilize. And, I just would really appreciate seeing a community come together like I did in Ingham and Eaton.
Yeah.